Others. Can I start again? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Right about.
It's never too late to do something for the environment you live in, to make it a better place for yourself, others, and the future generations. Good evening to all. Today, we are gathered here to acknowledge a very important event, World Environment Day. On this occasion, I would like to kindly invite the chief guest, Dr. Wesam Al Madhoun, Mr. Faisal Keke, the executive director, Ms. Shamshad, the principal, Ms. Mini, the vice principal, Ms. Uma Mohan, the headmistress, Ms. Fasla, the chief program coordinator, the teachers, and all students. A happy World Environment Day to every single one of you. And to give a kickstart to this auspicious event, we will go on to invite the Almighty into our presence.
All praises for the Almighty, Lord of the whole universe, the beneficent, the merciful, the honor of the day of recompense. Unto you we serve, Almighty, only you alone we seek for help and salvation. Please guide us to the righteous path, the path of those whom you have blessed, graced, and favored unto them. Never to those who walk your anger, know your own, and not of those who had gone astray.
As we all know, yesterday was World Environment Day, and this event is to acknowledge that. World Environment Day is observed every year on the 5th of June. It was first initiated by the United Nations back in 1972 and was first observed in 1974 with the theme Only One Earth. Since then, different countries have taken the initiative to host this event, and this year it's hosted by Pakistan with the theme Ecosystem Restoration and the slogan Reimagine, Recreate, Restore.
Now, to officially mark the beginning of this program, we have our Honorable Principal to welcome you all to this event with a welcome speech. Shamshad ma'am, please.
Thank you, Mahak. Yes, the anchor mentioned, today we gathered to celebrate World Environment Day on June 5th to give awareness to protect our Mother Nature. It is my proud privilege to invite the chief guest today, Dr. Wesam Al Madhoun, Director for Center of Sustainable Development, Gaza University. Backbone of Mountain, our Executive Director, Dr. Faisal Keke, Vice Principal, Ms. Mini Arnaya, Finance Manager Yasser, Headmistress Suma ma'am, Chief Program Coordinator Fasla ma'am, my dear colleagues and beloved students, Assalamu alaikum. Very pleasant good evening to one and all. One day is not enough to give awareness to protect our nature. I feel every day should be Environment Day. That should be our theme. Let the entire team get energized or motivated to preserve our nature in the coming year. Actually, the greatest threat to the nature is the belief of human that someone else will take care of nature or protect this nature. It is the prime duty of each human to protect or conserve this nature for coming generations. No other animal or organism will misuse or overexploit resources, I believe. You can't see a dog overeats at any time, or it makes shelter more than what is required. Even the bird search for food only when it is hungry and eat once it is satisfied its hunger, it leaves. It is the prime time for us to rethink or introspect whether our greediness overexploit the natural resources and it may lead to a danger for the coming generations. I don't want to extend or give a long speech. I know the eminent speakers are waiting for. And you people are eagerly waiting to listen to them. My dear students, only one thing I want to remind you. If you are not able to reuse or recycle, we can refuse such items. It destroys the environment. Once we feel that this motherland, it is not only for human beings, it is the ecosystem or the land which is created by the nature to live for the entire organism in a harmonious way. Each day, if we can take an oath that because of me, my surrounding will not be spoiled, or the dump, it is not the place where I can dump the waste whenever I feel like. Let it be the oath from each one of you. Each and every action or the lifestyle of ourselves will be correctly, easily mingle with or merge with the nature, or the way we can protect the nature we're supposed to manage our lifestyle. That is the reminder. And every time we always remind the children, we can reduce, reuse, and recycle the waste. Let it be stronger in each one who is listened to these words that let us go for recycle, reuse, and reduce the waste items. And let us go for greener to make or give the nest or the shelter for the entire smaller creatures to the largest animals to live peacefully in this world. Thank you once again, and I welcome the chief guest and the entire team to take to get a special day as an environmental day. So yesterday we couldn't, today we can celebrate it, and wishing all the very best. Let us enjoy the day. Thank you, and welcome the chief guest once again, behalf of the entire Mount Cat family. Thank you, Reva.
Thank you, Shamshad ma'am. As a part of World Environment Day, our school, Mount Guard International, has decided to host a one-year project for the students to take part in. To tell you more about said project, let's invite Fasla ma'am to give a brief description about it.
Thank you, Reva. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A very good evening to one and all present here. As you all know, today we have joined here to have a discussion and awareness on one of the greatest objectives that the world is having today, World Environment Day. Every year on June 5th, world is observing it. We do celebrate this day with variety of activities in the school. Why do we do that? What is the importance? We have seen recently in social media different trolls related to it. Some sarcastic comments for the deeds and works initiated on this day. Maybe because these efforts are done for one day and the people are forgetting for the rest of the days. But still, what you contribute for one day may be helping our Mother Earth to stabilize itself. Something is better than nothing, though we have to be alert and take care of the acts that hurts the environment for the rest of the days as well. The encouragement for the well-being of our environment has long been mentioned and practiced by the Prophet ﷺ more than 1400 years ago. From his action and words, we can deduce that we have the responsibility to take care of our Mother Earth. One of his hadiths narrates that the world is sweet and green, and verily Allah has appointed you as a representative over it. This clearly mentions each and every individual has the responsibility of guardianship over the natural environment. In fact, supporting the nature, contributing the environment is a worshipful deed, an ibadah. With this objective in mind, we have designed some works. A detailed awareness questionnaire has been forwarded, touching all the concepts and sensitizing everyone regarding this. Hope this can be forwarded to our guest of honor to have a suggestion over it, to comment over on it later, inshallah. And this, apart from the awareness part, We have put some resolutions as well to support our mother nature. The first resolution is regarding one of the greatest threat faced by the world today, that is the collection and disposal of plastics. This is to mainly encourage the proper disposal of plastics to free the premises and nature free of plastics. Here, different plastics can be collected, kept properly, and handed over to the recycle area. We have some exciting activities for the kids like chocolate wrapper collection, ballpoint pen collection, soft drink can collection, and all these works will be monitored, and in the end of the year, good works will be recognized. Resolution number 2 is encouraging the greening of the environment, like planting trees, creating a herbal garden inside and outside the house, making a butterfly garden, etc. Resolution number 3 is energy conservation by putting efforts to reduce the water and electricity bill. This will be monitored by the electricity and water bill, and considerable reduction will be recognized. We have also given some class-wise activities for the kids, like creating a bird's corner to connect the kids to the nature, making use of the fruit wastes and making a fruit enzyme cleaner, and also creating a compost bin to make use of the kitchen waste and digest it efficiently. All these works have been designed to create an awareness for the kids to contribute something for the mother nature. Hope our objective will be a success, and I expect all the cooperation from everyone, even for the students and the staff for this, inshallah. And thank you. Over to Deva.
Thank you, Fasla ma'am. Now we have the Honorable Executive Director of our school, Mr. Faisal KK, to give out the presidential address.
Thank you, Reva. Respected guest of the day, Dr. Wesam Madhoun, Principal, Vice Principal, Headmistress, Program Coordinator, teachers, and my dear students. Assalamu alaikum and very warm good evening to one and all. Actually, it was my wish to bring our chief guest, Dr. Wesam, to our campus to interact with the students and teachers when I met him 5 years back from an international program, World Assembly of Youth from Malaysia. That day he was presented a very nice paper in that meeting. After that, we had a lot of couple of discussions and chattings. But thank Almighty, this beautiful day we could make it. And also 1 week back, he was seriously sharing with me that our grade 10 standard students are going to get a golden opportunity to participate in an international program, which is controlled and coordinated by brother Wesam, that is Global Sustainability Student Ambassadors Program. All the details already shared with us, and we are next today the teachers will share it with you, the students. World Environmental Day has been observed last day with the slogan, with the philosophy that reimagine, recreate, and restore. I would like to ask how many of us seriously checked these 3 words. The question is that whether there is any space for the nature and environment in our imagination. Most of the time we are imagining only about our own well-being or our own growth. If you're checking any early civilization, ancient civilization, we can see a close relationship with nature. Even in the Mesopotamia, the role of Tigris and Euphrates, and if it in the case of Egypt, the role of Nile, and if it's in China, the role of Yellow River, in India, Indus Valley civilization. All these are closely related with river or with nature, but gradually, the process of development, somewhere we lost the relationship or the connection with the nature. We lost that or we disconnected with nature. That's why when we are observing the current situation, current position of the rivers, which is around us, it's very pathetic. If you're observing any pond or a river soon after a heavy rain, we can find plenty of used water bottles or plastic covers or plastic materials. Here, we want to think seriously, how can we reimagine, how can we recreate something to connect us with the nature and to safeguard the nature? And how can we restore the love towards the nature? Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal sir. Now it's a time to introduce you all to a very important personality. He holds BSc of Civil Engineering, MSc and PhD of Environmental Engineering from University Sains, Malaysia. He was a research professor at the University of Seoul, visiting scholar at the University of Windsor, and at Malaysia Japan International Institute of Technology. He was also an air pollution consultant for the international project Building Healthy Cities in Indonesia, funded by USAID. He has 15 years of working experience, during which he had assignments in Palestine, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, South Korea, USA, and Canada.
In terms of publications, he has more than 50 papers published at international peer-reviewed journals and international conferences. Currently, he is leading a global initiative, Ambassadors of Sustainability, which has more than 9,400 members from 120 countries.
So everyone, in all due respect, let's welcome Dr. Wesam Al-Madhoun.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for attending. A special thanks to Mr. Faisal for inviting me for this sharing session. And also I would like to thank the management of the school and the students, and I'm not sure whether maybe some of the parents also joining. So I think this is an important day, or we are talking about the Environment Day, which was yesterday. And as mentioned and discussed by Mr. Faisal earlier about the theme of the day, so we are talking about reimagining and recreating and restoring, and those terminologies need to be taken into the context of the environmental challenges which we are facing. And that should be taken seriously, because we are currently, all the humanity, facing a serious pandemic, which is somehow or other it's linked to the environmental challenges that we are facing for the last several years. And it is getting serious because there is a lot of disasters and negative impacts on the planet and on the human as well, and that need to be kind of taken seriously, so that we can enhance, improve the current situation, to protect first ourselves, and to protect the environment as well, for us, for the time being, and also for the future generation. So I choose today to talk about the current challenges and future opportunities in terms of the sustainability opportunities, uh, whereas as I mentioned, that we are facing a lot of troubles and challenges for the time being. And I think you all know that we are facing a lot of environmental challenges. Maybe one of the prominent challenges is the climate change, where like the countries and the governments, they are talking about climate change, right? And this is very serious because we've seen a lot of changes, high temperature, in some areas it's getting more cold, we have a lot of flooding, tsunami, and all these changes, it's because of the global warming, because of which is rooted from the carbon emissions. And we have also the biodiversity loss, which is somehow or other it's linked to the pandemic, to the COVID-19. We have air and water pollution, and those issues either it's local or global issues. Sometimes it's getting serious when you talk about the global aspect. And we have also water crisis and conflicts. We have natural resources drain, and we have deforestation impact, negative impacts of the deforestation. And also we have soil degradation. So all these negative impacts and challenges, they are local and global issues, and those are contributing to the suffering of the humanity. So as you can see here in the graphs, you can see that we have the number of populations increasing, and consequently, we have the consumption and the extraction of the resources increasing, and that create the stress on the resources and create the types of pollutants that we are seeing in the local and global scenario. And you can see here some statistics on the consumption of minerals, biomass, metals, and fossil fuels. And those quantities are increasing with time because of the increase of the population and the increasing demand to meet the needs of those population or those people in the global aspects. So we have, when we talk about the stress on the environmental resources. So consequently, we have a risk which rise due to this kind of pollutants. And as you can see here, there are some risks due to the indoor smoke from the solid fuels. We have unsafe water and sanitation. We have the urban outdoor air pollution, climate change, and lead exposure. So what we can notice here, if you look at the figures, you have a figure on the worldwide scale. You have a figure for the low and middle income and a figure for the high income. So when you look at the total or the cumulative for all 5 risks, the global risk factor is 8.7, while it is 9.6 in the low and middle income, and it is only 2.6 in the high income. And this is showing the injustice in terms of extraction of resources. It is high demand in the high income countries. So some people are utilizing largely the resources, but those who are suffering more, they are in the low and middle income, which is it is hitting the main issue of sustainability, which will be explained later on when you talk about the social justice. So this is totally unjust that someone is utilizing the resources, but the one who is paying the price is another community in a low and middle income. It's more vulnerable, more fragile community. And so talking about the context of the coronavirus, of the COVID-19, we know that this is some quite recent numbers on the global scenario of the coronavirus. We have more than 172 million cases. We have deaths of more than 3.7 million, and we have more than 155 million people recovered from the COVID. As I mentioned earlier, there is a link somehow or other on the origin of the coronavirus and the environmental challenges. There is a lot of evidence that this virus transmitted from animals to human, and that is definitely linked to the biodiversity. So this is the most serious disaster along the history? If you can see here in this graph, these are the global death from natural disaster, and that include the flooding, extreme weather, extreme temperature, landslide, mass movement, volcanic wildfires, and earthquake. And this is from 1900 to 2018. And you can see these are the fluctuation of the number of deaths, but we can notice here that more than 3.5 million died in 1930 because of these natural disasters. So along the history for the last 100 years, we have in 1 year, we had an incident which caused more than 3.5 million. Coronavirus, so far in almost 1.5 years, we have more than 3.7 million. So let's see, this is the worst scenario that we've been in the modern days and previously? So let's see here. There is one a challenge, which is a recurrent issue, a global challenge, which is the air pollution, that labeled to be the silent killer. And the air pollution, according to the WHO, it's causing 7 million deaths a year in the global prospect. And how these 7 million being distributed? We have 2 million in Southeast Asia, 2 million in Western Pacific, 1 million in Africa, 500,000 in the Eastern Mediterranean, 500,000 in Europe, and 300,000 in the Americas. And this is, again, if you just talk in numbers, and I think most of you might be in the science stream, so you like to see numbers and you understand the numbers well. So if you compare coronavirus, so far we have 3.7 million. The worst disaster in 1930, 3.5 million. Currently, we from only one single environmental pollution, which is air pollution, we are having 7 million people dying every year because of that source of pollutants. So just to compare the numbers, and later on I will show you more numbers on the economy of the pollutants. What is the cost of those environmental pollutions? So out of those 7 million people, why they are dying? Because when you have air pollution, you will have a lot of health impacts. So these health impacts related to the pneumonia, causing strokes, and also ischemic heart disease. You will have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and it causes also lung cancer. So the 7 million, they are dying because of these symptoms, because of these disease, and that is causing a disaster. To me, I am always calling it as an atmospheric disaster, and it is not a single event. It is an annual incident which causing this million of people who are dying. And out of the 7 million, we have 3.8 million people dying because of using the solid fuel for heating and for cooking. And in this scenario, the women and children are the most at risk. And again, those people are dying because of stroke, ischemic heart disease, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, and also pneumonia. So again, this is a disaster which is a recurrent issue, and that is causing a lot of deaths and suffering for the humanity. When we talk about utilization of solid fuels and the cause of air pollution, which is mainly in the indoor environment, so the distribution of these percentage, if you look at this figure, you can see that 43% of the people in India are exposed to such kind of pollutants, 30% of the population in China, 71% of the population in Nigeria. The lowest here, you can see 12% in Thailand. So we are talking about billions of people who are exposed to such kind of pollutants. And again, that's why we are talking about 3.8 million people dying because of the utilization of such type of fuel. Talking in the again disaster prospect, we had from 2000 to 2012 we had a loss of 1.7 trillion dollar of the damage due to the disaster, 2.9 billion people affected, and we had 1.2 million killed due to disaster in 12 years, and that is a huge kind of suffering and disaster. So what is the impact in terms of economy, in terms of the percentage of the GDP? If you can see here in the graph, we are talking about 9.6% of the GDP in Ghana. This is the highest globally. This is being lost because of the environmental degradation, because of water pollution, air pollution, waste issues, all these environmental challenging causing this percentage of loss. In China, 9.5. I think there is a number here for India. We are talking about 5.7% of the GDP is being lost because of the environmental challenges. In Nepal, we are talking about 3.5. The lowest here in Tunisia, it is 2.1 percentage of the GDP. So talking about a human fatality, we are talking about a huge number, millions of people. Talking about economy, we are talking about a huge amount of losses to the economy because of the impacts. One more numbers, and this is all from a recent, quite recent reports on the impacts, and this is mainly from air pollution. In 2015, the loss of the health impacts and the healthcare cost was $21 billion in 2015, and it is expected to reach 176 billion in 2060, because very basic. If people are sick, they will go to hospitals, and if they go to private hospitals, they have to pay for the treatment fees. If you go to the government hospitals, then it is subsidized, and then the government will bear the cost of the treatment. And also, when people are sick, they won't go to work, so we are losing the productivity. We are losing the productivity in terms of companies, and also from the national level. Another number here, in 2060, the annual number of lost working days due to the air pollution, it is projected to reach 3.7 billion working days globally. And in 2015, it was 1.2 billion working days, right? While the market impacts of outdoor air pollution, which include impacts on labor, productivity, health expenditure, and agricultural crops yield, that is projected to reach 1% of the GDP by 2060. So again, these are numbers to show you the impacts of air pollution on the economy, on the market. Going back to the COVID-19, is that COVID-19 impact, the economical impacts of COVID-19, is it higher, lower than the impacts of the environmental damage? So this is a recent study which shows that the early estimate predicted that the virus become a global pandemic, and most major economies will lose around 2.9% of their gross domestic products over 2020. And the forecast was already restated that a GDP loss of 4.5% due to the pandemic. While to put these numbers in perspective, the global GDP, it is estimated to be $87.5 trillion. So when we talk about a 4.5% drop in the economic growth, that might cause 3.9 trillion USD dollar. So this is the estimated loss due to the COVID-19. Another report says that the poor health cost almost twice much higher than the pandemic cost, which is because some of the reports also estimated that the loss of the pandemic might rise to 8% of the GDP. And this report says that in an annual base, we are losing 15% of the global GDP due to the poor environmental health, right? A drop in the premature deaths, the productivity, loss of productivity, and that costs a lot for the global GDP. So because, as I mentioned, when people are sick, they will be absent, and we are losing the productivity. So at the other hand, if we enhance, if we improve a better health system, a better environmental health, we will have an extra $12 trillion to the GDP by 2040. So if we neglect the environment, we are losing money. We are losing a huge amount of money. While if we improve the health system, if we improve the environmental health, we will have an extra 12 trillion, because people, when they are healthy, they won't be absent, they will produce more, they will be more productive, and that will add more to the global GDP. And that is according to the one study. Just to give you more numbers on the country scale. So as part of the loss of air pollution in China, 1.8 million people dying every year, and they are losing 900 billion USD. And here in India, 1 million people dying because of air pollution, and 150 billion USD lost as a result of air pollution. And maybe one more here, a figure from Italy. We are talking about 56,000 people dying because of air pollution, and 61 billion USD as being lost due to the air pollution. This is a study from this year, just being released last month. So this study shows that in 5 mega cities in worldwide, in the 5 cities, we lost 163,000 people, and those cities lost $85 billion in 2020. And those cities, we are talking about Tokyo, 40,000 people, and they lost 43 billion. Delhi, 54,000 people died because of air pollution, and 8.1 billion lost. And maybe here in Brazil, 15,000 people died while they lost 7 billion USD. So we are talking about a huge loss in terms of human fatalities, and also in terms of economy. More numbers on the impacts of air pollution from the road transport. We are talking about 3.5 million people killed yearly by the outdoor air pollution. Half of those deaths is because of transport, and that caused 1.6 trillion dollar as loss. And so again, going back to the link between the pollutants, the pollution, and the coronavirus, during the last 1.5 years, we've seen some positive changes due to the lockdown, where many countries undergo a lockdown to control the infection rate. So this lockdown limit a lot of activities, the transport, the flights, and also the movement of peoples, and that contribute to the purification of water, reducing of the greenhouses gases, reducing of the emissions, and that is definitely a good sign and a positive change. But how to sustain that on the long run, that is will be discussed shortly. Maybe one of the aspects that was quite it was a bit negative, that we had some increase in the medical waste, which need to be handled carefully by the hospitals, and during collection and also during disposal, because we don't want to create any other infection avenue for the COVID-19. So this is one of the negative changes, that we had increase in the medical waste. So what is the way forward? How to sustain the positive change that we seen during the COVID-19, which is more during the lockdown, that we've seen a lot of positive changes. So the way forward is to practice the sustainable development. What we mean by sustainable development, it is meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. And for the sustainability to be practiced, we have to consider the 3 elements of sustainability. The first one is the economic, where we need to meet the needs of people to create economical activities, but same time, we have to consider the environmental impact in our activities to minimize the level of pollutants, or to eliminate totally the pollutant from all aspects, whether it is in the atmosphere or soil or water. And the third important pillar of sustainability is the social aspect, where when we perform the economic development, we have to create an inclusive community. We have to perform the social justice to provide the people their needs equally in terms of quantity and equality. And that is the way forward, because we can't consider the lockdown for a long duration, because if the lockdown is extended, a lot of people will be suffering because they are losing their jobs, or some people who are working daily, they are getting their wages daily, so that those people will be suffering. So we have to try to find the balance. The lockdown is good as a tool to control the infection rate, but on the long run, to have a more clean environment, we have to perform the sustainable development. Again, during the lockdown, the COVID-19, we have some motivators where when we practice the lockdown, we seen that we can do it. We can purify back the environment, because when we stop our activities, the environment become clean and purified. So we have to control our activities. We have to perform economical activities. But when we establish a factory, for example, we have to install filters or to install mechanism to filter all these pollutants before releasing them to the atmosphere. We avoid sending our waste to the rivers or to the water bodies. We control the pollutants on the soil. We control our utilization of pesticides, which is damaging the soil, and also these pesticides leaching to the soil, leaching to the groundwater, and that is risky for the human. We have to find alternative in terms of the biocontrol of the pest rather than using the chemicals or the pesticides, which is risky. We also have a lot of avenues for digital economy. People are performing their duties while they are staying home. They are using the online platforms for education and for meetings, for conferences, and that is limiting the amounts of traveling, limiting the amounts of flights, and that is also contributing to the reduction of emissions. So these avenues should be utilized. Like, for example, in many institutions, academic or educational institution, they are thinking now about utilizing the hybrid mode, which is face-to-face plus online, and that will give opportunities for people who have restrictions, who can't afford to travel or to be high fees in the reputable universities. So they will have access to education through the online mode, and that definitely contributing to the social justice, providing access to education. So we have to look at the positive avenues that been created during the COVID-19. And there are some other aspects talking about the education. The policies of the education should be in line with these emerging dynamics, because, like, for example, previously many countries, they do not approve any certificate which is being gained as part of an online system. But now we realize that the online system, the online platform, is crucial to continue our education system during this pandemic. So we have to recognize this system and to give opportunity for people to join any other institution which is internationally, which does not mean that you have to stay locally and just to rely on face-to-face strategy and policy for education. And one of the other aspects, as I mentioned on the pesticide, we have to adopt the sustainable agriculture. We have to utilize the local urban farms and the biopesticides, which is promising, and that will cut the food waste, and also will contribute to the food security, and will save water and reducing the chemical pesticides. And we realized during the pandemic that the environmental and personal hygiene should be part of the awareness in the schools, in the universities, which is very basic to avoid the infections by the viruses which can cause pandemic, a global pandemic. So we have also to realize that preserving and protecting the environment is something that it's a collective responsibility. All people need to work together to protect the environment. So it's not the responsibility of the government only or the industry only. The industry, academic institution, the governments, the NGOs, the community, everyone should work together to achieve that. Otherwise, if we neglect the environment, everyone will be suffering. And this is what we are seeing now. And one of the aspects that we have to create the paradigm shift, especially in the industry, that when we talk about protection of environment, it should not be seen as an economic burden, rather than it is an opportunity for business and sustainability. And if we have an example, it's the good example is the recycling, and many people now calling it waste to wealth, where when you recycle the iron or the steel, you recycle the plastic, you recycle even in many countries. And this is, I think I will give you an interesting example. Even though in Palestine there is a conflict, I mean, it is all the time under unstable condition, but people, they are eager to do recycling for steel, for plastic, and even for construction waste. And that is because those items have a value in the market. They can collect those items and they sell them to the traders, and then they will be sent to the industry. So even though if you don't have the people, they don't have enough awareness on the environment, if you create a value for waste, people will start trading it, will start doing business with it, and that's creating a business opportunity for the people. And I think this is one of the best strategies to push people and motivate people to go towards the protection of the environment. And maybe if we talk about the role of the government to push the industry to control the emissions, the governments can provide incentives or tax reductions, and also can change the policies to be more lenient towards providing opportunity. Like, I'm always inquiring why we can't consider, if a company perform a CSR project, why we can't consider that, why we can't consider if a company deploy a system for pollution control as part of the CSR strategy. And I think this should be the very best CSR project, since it's protecting, it's lowering the pollution, and it's protecting the people. And that should be kind of a mechanism from the government to motivate the industry to control the emission. I will end my talk here by saying that to do all of this, we have to create we need a stable political environment, and we need a strong legal and enforcement system, and a generous government budgets for health, education, and IT infrastructure. So I'll stop the sharing session to kind of be in the time limitation. And I will be happy to answer if there is any question. And I'd like to, again, thank you all for listening, and thanks for the school management for inviting me. Thank you so much.
I think
So,
1 second before the vote of thanks, can give a chance for the audience to interact with the guest.
Ma'am, can I ask one question?
Yes, yes.
Sir, do you still think that there are lessons for humans to study from nature?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about studying or getting lessons from the nature. It's very seen if we are the one who are suffering. It's not about, I mean, if we are so nice, we can talk about the suffering of the nature. But actually now we are suffering. When we talk about, I gave an example of air pollution. We're talking about millions of people dying because of something that we create. I mean, we have to think about ourselves. We have to be selfish first. We think about ourselves. We are creating suffering for ourselves. It does not like we are caring about the birds or the water. We care about ourselves first. We are killing ourselves. When we are using the pesticides, for example, we are killing ourselves. We want to speed up the product's life. Sometimes it does not, sometimes even it's not an application of pesticides. It's not for best. It's just to speed up the growing of the crops. But we eat the crops at the very early days. And then we have a lot of, I'm sure, just to give you an example, I remember I compare numbers from 2010 to 2020, just in 10 years. In Palestine, the cancer cases, there were 120 cases in 1 year. Now we had 120 in 1 month. So we already, we have 10 times the rate of cancer in 10 years. So it is not about the environment, it is about ourselves first. So if we harm the environment, we are harming ourselves.
Sir, can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, so
Welcome.
how many places do you think are in the danger of destruction? And is this number dangerous to the environment?
Sorry, how many what? I did not get the point. How many what?
How many places or areas are in the danger of destruction?
You mean globally?
Yeah.
It depends. This is globally. You can't like get an statistics on how many places in danger. But uh, if you look at the holistic approach on the global scenario, everybody is in danger. When you talk about climate change, right? So it does not differentiate whether you are in India or in Palestine or in Nigeria. Everybody is at risk, because when you have high temperature, you have heavy rain, you have flooding, you have a tsunami. So everybody at risk. So basically, if you talk about the global aspect, if you talk in terms of climate change, everybody in risk. Sometimes the risk is more in, like tsunami. Those who are sitting at or living at the coastal area will be more risk. In terms of countries, maybe if you talk about the sea level rise, like many people talking about Maldives is one of the countries that might be affected seriously by the sea level rise. But basically, in the global prospect, everyone at risk, but different kind of risks.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
So another question too.
Okay.
About the sustainable development goals. As students, being the ambassador, what is our role in it?
Okay, so the idea was that we need to create more awareness about the sustainability and the practices of sustainability, because what we can see, it is not about technology, it's not about something complicated or something that need a huge amount of money. It is just to create an awareness among people, among the business sector, among the policymakers, to create this paradigm shift, right? Because let me give you an example. When we talk about pesticides, for example, right? So yet the utilization of the pesticide, it's controlled by a human, by the farmers. So we need to create the awareness among farmers about the risk of the pesticides. This is the first one. The second is we have to have strong regulations and we have to have a strong enforcement. Then we can create the balance that we utilize the pesticides in a certain amounts with a certain time frame. We cut the crops in a certain time, we can sell it in a certain time. Then so awareness is one thing, you need a policy, and you need the enforcement, right? in business sector, we don't have to stop the business activities, but what we need to do is to have our responsibility when we create any project, any activity. We have to think and assess the environmental implications, and we have to put a plan on managing those environmental impacts to limit and minimize the impacts. So we don't have to change our life, the pattern of our life. It's just to be more responsible toward the environment, and that is needing the awareness. I'll give you one more specific example. Those people who are burning the waste or burning the agriculture waste or the solid waste, that is nothing to do with technology. It's our behavior, it's our attitude. So many things we need to change the paradigm of people. We need to raise the awareness to tell them that when we are harming the environment, we are harming ourselves first. And that is among the rules of the ambassadors. When they are equipped with all these knowledge, then at least if you talk among your family members, you will raise the awareness of your family, and then you can create this mobilization of or movement and creating this awareness among the generation, because we need to protect ourselves, and also to make sure that the planet that we are living in, it will be the future generation will enjoy the same quality of life as we are enjoying now. And this is something that everyone need to think about it. It's not something on the luxurious level, or something that as mentioned by the earlier speakers, that it is not a responsibility of someone else. Everyone's responsibility is to take care of the environment so that we can live in a peaceful and also a healthy environment.
Yes, it's very true. Thank you, sir.
So who want to ask next question?
Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Shafi Munis. I'm physics teacher of the school. So my question is related to environment and development. So how can we make this development and the environment go in hand? Most of the cases, the development and the environmentalist will be in opposite side of a field, right, of a war. So how can we make them in the same side? What would be your suggestions?
Yeah, actually, it's not complicated, because basically the policy are there. You just need to enforce them. Like, for example, we have a policy called environmental impact assessment. And in most of the countries, you suppose not to proceed with any activity or any project before conducting an assessment study, which shows what are the expected environmental impacts. And you have to draw a plan of mitigation to control the pollutants. When you do that plan, and then you have a guarantee that you will perform those steps, those measures when you implement the projects. And then you have to create a management or environmental monitoring and management plan, and you have auditing. So you make sure you study the impacts, you predict the impacts before proceeding, you get the approval, you implement the project. When you implement the project, we have to monitor that whatever you predicted and whatever you write guarantee that you will do it, you already did it. By that, when we have everything in place, so every project, every activity, we will make sure that the impacts will be at the very minimal and acceptable limits within the standard. And that is the role of the policymakers, the governing bodies, right? Because we can have the best policy, but if we fail to enforce it, we will have a disaster. And one more point, if we don't have a transparent system, a good governance system, also we will fail, because we will fail in the implementation. So everything is nice on papers, but when you implement it, there is no follow-up and auditing and monitoring, and that will create the disaster that we are living in.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I am Jasita, English teacher. Sir, according to you, what is your opinion on India's contribution towards global biodiversity?
Yeah, again, talking about the global prospects, some of the issues, it is more serious on the local context. And as I shown the numbers on the India level, it is very serious in India. India is losing 1 million people every year, and 150 billion USD every year. So both human fatality and losses is great, right? And that should motivate people and should motivate the country to take a serious steps towards reducing the emissions because of the great loss. Talking about the global prospect, which is more related to the carbon emissions, which contribute to the global warming and lead to the climate change. So we know that when you have a great country with high population, a high industry, that will definitely put you on the main contributors to the carbon emissions, and that is creating some impacts on the global prospect. That's why those issues, for example, air pollution locally is causing a lot of troubles, and also globally it's creating some concerns. So there is a need for intervention to make sure that people are living in a safe environment. You are reducing the losses to the national economy, and also you will have less negative impacts on the global scenario.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام.
Doctor, I am Ahmed Alfal, the Arabic teacher in the school. So, seeing you as the research director of sustainable development in Jamiat Gaza, I have two questions to you. The primary question, let me conclude it to one question. Yani, Gaza or Palestine, it's currently in a big, after the continued attacks of Israel, Palestine is in a verge of disaster, like desertification of the eastern slopes and the degradation of agriculture and all the rangelands, the unregulated waste dumpings, and the raw sewage, and in addition to severely depleted, what we say, the underground water aquifers. So, in such an environment, and a continued attack from Israel is coming, being a director of the Sustainable Development Department in Gaza University, how do you see sustainable development in a place like Gaza? Or how do you define sustainable development in a place like Palestine?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And I think this is quite interesting. Definitely the complication of the situation here in Palestine, it is a bit complicated more than other scenarios, because not only the practices of the industry of people, you have an extra challenge with the Israeli occupation, which is adding to the troubles. But people, or when you talk about the specialists in the environment, they have to try their utmost based efforts to try to raise the awareness of people practicing all these positive environmental behaviors, and also improve the infrastructure so that you can have a better environmental elements, which definitely will contribute to the peaceful livelihood of the people. And there is a lot of efforts from the universities, from the academia, collaborating with the policymakers, with the government agencies, in terms of research, in terms of giving advice. Like one of the things that we are doing now after the ending of the war, we launched a voluntary initiative to assess the impact of the war and put the required intervention in terms of the environmental and water aspects, and that is one of the aspects that we are contributing to, plus educating people and raising the awareness and giving like an assistance and advice consultancy for the institution and for the government to have more environmental friendly practices. But definitely that is in the context of the Palestinian scenario, it is more complicated. And but anyway, we can surrender and we have to continue the our efforts and to contribute on whatever level we can do and contribute.
Thank you, sir. جزاك الله كل خير.
حياكم الله.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wesam.
So can I?
One second, Reva. Someone is having some question.
Sir,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
modernization is one issue that harms the environment, but how can we compromise it?
What is it?
You know, modernization is one issue that harms the environment. How do we compromise it?
Yeah, you know, we can say like we want to get rid of our practices and just to stay in the old-fashioned pattern of life or lifestyle. We can keep up with the modernization, but whatever activity we do, we have to assess. We have to make sure that the environmental impact should be minimized and controlled. I give you an example. When you have a good transport system, it does not mean that this system should be more polluted to the environment. Like one of the solution for traffic congestion and traffic emission is to have a good public transport, because you can reduce the number of private cars. So this is when you have a good train system, subway, a good bus system. So this is kind of modernization, but it contributes to the positive change and reducing the emission, reducing the congestion, reducing the noise, right? So we have to think about that line of modernization. Thinking about building and construction, we have to utilize the material which has less negative impacts on the environment. We have to select green materials, right? So we can keep up with the modernization, but the modernization should come in line with the environment to maintain our impacts on the environment to be at the very minimal level, which is acceptable within the standards and following the policies at the local and international scenario.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I think by this we can conclude. Over to Reva.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wesam. Your way of interpreting the knowledge is very understandable. That was very informative and helpful. We are very grateful to you for taking your time out of a busy day for us to give us awareness on the topic World Environment Day. We would like to convey a sincere thanks to you on behalf of all the teachers, students, and all the coordinators. We also thank the school for taking the initiative of arranging an informative session to benefit us in the society. Also, a massive thank you to RED, all the heads, teachers, and beloved friends. We hope you all enjoyed this evening and you got something to remember from here. Thank you once again. This is Reva Sarivanand and Fatima Mhe taking your leave.
Thank you, sir. And we are looking forward for the active implementation of our project GSSA. Actually, our 10th standard already started the last week, and we teachers will communicate with all the details with the students. I hope you and your team will be able to support our students to be as you mentioned, the ambassadors of environment protection, and to help the next generation to reimagine and to redefine the way of their treating with the nature.
Yeah,
thank you
so
actually.
much. Yeah, thank you
actually,
so
I know that you are busy schedule. Yesterday, I think last 2 days, so was having seminars with Indian agencies. I think the collaboration with Indian central government and all. It was a detailed program. So anything in
Yeah.
casual?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate your invitation. And definitely I will be happy to collaborate with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye. Alaikum.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.